And so I remember a friend of mine years ago telling me about this guy. When I first heard about him, I didn't even realize he was in Pink Floyd.
Hey, Chief. Welcome to Thursday Collection Connection, where we're playing that game that's just an excuse to talk about records. Play the game with my brother, Plastic Eric from the Plastic Soundwave Cult. He does his videos every Monday, mine are every Thursday, and let's get to it. Eric's last video, he talked about, I'm already going to remember exactly what, or forget, I'm not going to remember, because I am forgetting currently, what the name of the album was because it had a bunch of different names. Sid Barrett album called the Radio 1 Sessions, I believe. That was a vinyl compilation of a compilation that had sort of expanded over time. That in some places was called the John Peel Session, some places called the John Peel Sessions. And then when they added a better generation, I think that they initially had a very poor recording of a different BBC session, not with John Peel, for some show that I'm forgetting the name of. They found a better one, but they were no longer all John Peel sessions, so they became the Radio 1 sessions. There was at least 4 different album covers, I think. It was really kind of all over the place, very sort of unofficial, I guess. I've been otherwise distracted and having a hard time even coming up with a connection. So I can't say that I've listened to it yet. There's been a 24-hour radio thing going on for over a week that's had my attention. So basically that's what I've been listening to, and can't bring myself to turn it off in order to listen to something else. It was difficult to connect it to anything on pure research. Eric had recently done Peel sessions as a connection, and the few things that I knew about Sid Barrett was whether or not he actually was a recluse. He was generally regarded as a recluse. And after going down a few avenues and not really finding anything, it's not the greatest connection because, again, I don't know exactly how you define somebody as a recluse. I think that's it. It's as much defined as a recluse in the mind of the public just because they were in the public and sort of chose not to be. That doesn't necessarily make you a recluse. Maybe it just means that you don't like all the public attention. But I thought of another famous recluse, regarded as a recluse, is Jeff Mangum from Neutral Milk Hotel. I'm one take in this. Jeff Magnum, and that's the thing, so I always want to say, so I'm always thinking about Magnum, and it's not saying that, and then I forget everything else that I'm supposed to say. It's Mangum, and he's from Neutral Milk Hotel, and I thought this is as good a time as any to talk about In the Airplane, Over the Sea, from 1998. I will note that there are no words anywhere on this thing. Well, there's the words Made in Canada on a sticker on the jewel box, but even the spine there, it only has the band name, Neutral Milk Hotel. It doesn't have the album title anywhere that you can see. It would have to come on a sticker on the shrink wrap when you first bought the thing. This is an album that, again, like a recent connection of Eric's, didn't make necessarily a huge splash initially, but its reputation grew over time, and a lot of people cite it as a very important album now. And I was resistant to it for a while. It's very lo-fi and indie. The Neutral Milk Hotel is part of the Elephant Six Collective, which includes the Apples in Stereo, which I talked about once in an episode long ago. And the leader of that band, Robert Schneider, is the producer on this album. So they did lots of sort of intermingling, and so part of the collective thing, I guess. But Robert Schneider produced this. And I was resistant to it for years because I thought what I had read about it, A, being lo-fi, 2, being inspired by the Diary of Anne Frank, and 3, having been made by a guy who is, again, regarded as a recluse, I thought, you know what, I think I'm good. And it never spawned hits per se, so it wasn't like I was rejecting things that I had heard. It's just, it was sort of an out of hand rejection. And I'm not sure what made me turn around, maybe 10 years ago. It's been a while since I did pick it up, but I resisted it for years. And in the end, that ended up being silly. It's a very good record. I was going to say fun. That's why I said that so slowly and insincerely sounding. But it's not a fun record. It is, but it is an affecting record. And I can see why people regard it as highly as they do. It's sort of a hipster reference, and I think maybe it gains some ground in the public consciousness, maybe thanks to a sort of hipster mentality. Though I'm just pulling that out of my ass. I'm not sure why I'm saying that, other than the fact that I'm doing almost no prep whatsoever for this. But yes, it's very, very indie sounding, and it is lo-fi. I have not heard, actually. There's only been 2. So again, kind of like Syd Barrett, who, after Pink Floyd, produced 2 solo albums before kind of flitting away again, only to pop up again occasionally. Jeff Mangum, after On Avery Island, which I've never heard, and this album, he sort of disappeared from view himself. They have popped up. Once he did kind of a small tour in 2011. They put out a new EP, their first new music since this album. I think maybe conceivably in the case of Neutral Milk Hotel, having gone so long and having sort of this building reputation of the album might have made it intimidating to try to follow up. And even I believe that the things that were on the EP were not newly written songs. I think there were songs that were written while the band was active. And I'm not sure when they were recorded. They may have been recorded around the time of the release, or they may have just been vault tracks. I'm not sure. Certainly, in the case of Syd Barrett, they have done their best to clean out the vault of anything he had, because he did not put out any new material of his own accords after 1970, I think, the 2 albums. And that was another difficult thing to connect with, the fact that the album Eric showed was one of these sort of, it wasn't posthumous because he was still alive when it was released, but post-fame collections of a person who we don't know a whole lot about necessarily. So anyway, I love some of the songs on here. Ghost, Holland 1945, King and Carrot Flowers, parts 1, 2, and 3. It is charming. Maybe that's it's a charming record. And while very poetic in the lyrics, it still kind of cuts to the bone a little bit. They're very sharp lyrics, even though they're not super direct lyrics. And the Anne Frank references aren't beat you over the head obvious, at least to me. I mean, so there's some very obvious references to the war, to World War II, but to, Anne Frank's specific plight, it's more mentioned in details that you could say, that applies to Anne Frank's life, than it does say, and Anne Frank did this, and Anne Frank did this. It's not like that. But anyway, making a quick go of this. I'm going to go turn the radio back on here in a minute and let Eric discover, if he hasn't already, Neutral Milk Hotels, In the Airplane, Over the Sea. It's an album that's been on a lot of people's lips over the years, but definitely one of those more people have heard of them than have heard them, at least for a number of years. And it's a shame because in the end, it's just a record and it's just music and it's good music. So don't let its reputation either overhype your expectations or make you preemptively want to dislike it because if you just open yourself up to it, it's a really wonderful record. And with that, you can look for Eric's response on Monday. I thank you for watching. Bye bye.